Hiya, Wanju. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much to those of you who've joined me in person and to those of you who are listening in later on to this webinar. Thank you for everything it took for you to hear this. I know it's not easy to carve out this time. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the PowerPoint. And if you're listening in, I'll be sharing this via email with you so you can have a look at it as I'm speaking if you'd like to. The first thing I'd like to do is acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we meet, the Whadjuk Noongar people, that is for me here. I'd like to acknowledge their continuing connection to land, waters and community, and to elders past and present in the spirit of reconciliation. My name's Belinda Smith. I work as a parenting facilitator with Miralinga Parenting Service, and I love supporting parents. I think it's the most important job. So thank you so much for everything it took for you to be here today. Thank you so much for everything you do as a parent. It's really important work. It really matters. And I know that parents do it with their whole hearts. So thank you so much. The information in our webinar today is mostly from the Australian Childhood Foundation and also some from the Raising Children Network as well. The webinar today is all about mindfulness for parents. My hope is that this is a great little starting point for you and that you get some fresh ideas, some new thinking to support you as you do the important work of parenting. The key messages from the webinar today are really simple. The first key message about mindfulness for parents is actually just supporting you and understanding that you are doing your best. And I know that might seem a little bit strange to say, but parents forget that sometimes. I think we give ourselves a hard time. So you are doing your best and you deserve a lot of support as you do this really important work. Then we're going to dive into the topic of mindfulness, learn a little bit more about what it is and also why it's helpful. And then thirdly, some practical ways to use mindfulness as a parent. And I'm going to share with you some of the strategies from the Australian Childhood Foundation. And it's a great website actually to check out. There's a bunch of free resources on there and they offer some really good workshops as well. One of the workshops we offer is Bringing Up Great Kids. So that's worth looking out for. So the situation for parents, just spending a moment reflecting on all that you do can help you just be a bit gentler with yourself, I think. Parents adore their children. Every parent I've ever met loves their children with a huge, big heart, but the situation is not always conducive to the kind of warm, unhurried, unworried relationships that children thrive on. Our society deems parenting as a little bit like a hobby, like you broke it, you bought it, go away and do it yourself. So it can be very isolating. It can be exhausting, overwhelming, and we often feel a lot of guilt and we often feel a lot of shame. We have a real poverty of time and many parents are facing bigger challenges, even bigger than those huge challenges, ingrained oppressions like racism and sexism and broader big challenges across the world that some people are facing. So parenting, as we know, is a big job and it's not always easy. Parents love their children deeply and they make huge efforts to love and care for their children, and we really need and deserve appreciation and support. What we tend to do is each generation tries hard to improve on our own childhood experiences. It's a little bit like your ceiling that you experienced as a child becomes your floor as a parent. And your parents were doing their very best, but each generation does tend to use those experiences to improve on them and just try to hone it so that it's better and better. As we do that, we deserve a lot of help. And when we get that help, our care and our love and our big hearts can actually extend beyond our own families into our community. So it's really worth investing in parents. Now, mindfulness is a fantastic tool for parents to use in their own lives. It's not something that structurally and systemically will change things. So it's actually quite a lot to ask busy parents to sit and be mindful. We do need broader systemic change as well. But as individuals, we can make some changes in our lives, and mindfulness is one of these things that can be incredibly helpful. What is it? Mindfulness is very simple. It's a non-judgmental, moment-to-moment awareness. And it's a kind of awareness, an awareness that doesn't bring with it any criticism, which can be quite a novel experience for some of us, letting those worries come and go without judgment, a little bit like a beautiful blue sky and the clouds coming past. So we're not judging this cloud as a good one and that cloud as a bad one. We're just noticing, there's a cloud shaped like an elephant. There's a cloud shaped like a dinosaur. A non-judgmental, moment-to-moment awareness, focusing your complete attention on what's happening right now. What we know is that this brings huge benefits. It's such a simple thing to do, but it brings huge benefits. So you can bring your mindful awareness to your internal world. So, for example, how your breath makes your chest rise and fall. And some of the most ancient examples of mindfulness are used in Buddhist meditation that are thousands of years old, where we're just concentrating on the breath going in and out of the nostrils. You can also bring your mindful awareness to what's around you. For example, the sun on your skin, the smell of your coffee, or the sounds that you hear around you. Why is mindfulness helpful? It's such a great question. We are busy parents. We don't want to be doing anything unless it's really helpful, and this is. Research shows us very clearly that when you practice mindfulness, you will feel calmer, you will feel more focused and better able to concentrate. And I think the important thing for parents is that research shows us that in moments of stress, you're more able to pause and build in a bit of space into those hard moments and make better decisions. And I work with parents every day, so I feel like that's the big winner for us as parents, is that building in some spaciousness into those hard moments. Overall, it can reduce our stress and boost our well-being, and it helps us feel more responsive. So it's like we can be with the child in front of us and less overwhelmed. So it gives incredibly big results for a fairly small amount of effort on our part. Why does it work? Well, functionally, what's happening is that it's dampening or tamping down activity in our amygdala, which is a part of the brain that is there to sense danger and to react to survival threats. So it dampens down that activity in that reactive part of the brain and increases connections between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. And this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, deals with logic, reason, short-term memory, all those beautiful, real thinking parts of the brain. So when we're able to engage those different parts of the brain and integrate them, that helps us to be less reactive to the stresses in our lives and to recover better from the stress we do face when we experience it. So mindfulness really works with our brains in ways that switch them on to have positive results. Specifically, research has shown that being mindful helps parents be more aware of their own feelings and thoughts and bodies, but it also helps us become more aware of our children's non-verbal need, like what they're saying with their bodies and with their tone, and become more aware of what they need. And if you've done any other workshops with Miralinga, you'll know that we often go way beneath the behaviours we see from our children to look at what are the needs. So mindfulness can be really helpful in supporting us to see what our children's needs are. Mindfulness increases our ability to stand back from situations without responding in, those snap reactions and that inappropriate response that we can have sometimes as busy parents. It helps us to build in some space and gives us more choice in the way that we're behaving. So rather than just reacting, we can build in some space and respond, and we can take some power back in that situation and really have choice. So it engages us as a whole being, our emotional selves and our thinking cognitive selves, in the choices that we're making when we respond to our children. So instead of it just being our emotional selves and we just react strongly in ways that we maybe don't feel so good about, mindfulness allows us to react with an integrated brain, react with all the parts of our brain switched on so that we can make the most useful choices in those moments. So we're going to look at 3 key mindfulness practices, and these are all from the Australian Childhood Foundation website and from the Bring Out Great Kids program. And we're going to have a little experiment with these in this webinar. I'll give you a little bit of time to practice them. So the first one is very simple, and you can actually, to remind you of this, you can create your own little remote control out of a piece of cardboard or something and just draw a little stop, pause and play. So the stop in red, the pause in orange and the play in green. And what it's all about is that you stop what you're doing and make sure that you're feeling quite grounded. So you put your feet firmly on the ground, pause for a moment and focus on your breath. And just take 5 breaths or so, really being aware of that breathing, and feel your body relax, and give yourself space to reflect. And importantly, to ask yourself, what do I need and what does my child need? Then and only then do you press play and respond to your child with a new understanding. Maggie Dent talks about the parental pause, and I think this is one of the most powerful things we can learn to do as parents, is to just bring that spaciousness into tricky moments. It's great to do this at first and to practice it as much as you can in moments that are not fraught with difficulty and emotion. So right now is possibly a good time for that. So you might like to bring to mind some small situation that has made you feel or brought about feelings of worry, anxiety, anger, any kind of unenjoyable feelings that have come up. So perhaps your child refuses to brush their teeth, and you can take yourself to that moment where they're saying no, and you can feel yourself getting more and more stressed. So that's a perfect example. And right now you can stop what you're doing, place your feet firmly on the ground and feel those toes splayed out firmly on the ground, and focus on your breath. So right now I want you to breathe in slowly, right down into your belly, and then exhale completely. I'm going to take 5 more of these slow breaths, being aware of each breath as it goes in and out. Really breathing deep down into your belly. Feel your body relax. You might like to just bring a smile to your face and ask yourself, what did I need in that moment? Perhaps you needed a break. Perhaps you needed some cooperation. Perhaps you needed a glass of water. What did you need? And then ask yourself, what did my child need in that moment? Perhaps they needed some choice or agency. Perhaps they needed some fun. You're the expert in your family, so just spend a moment thinking about what your child needed. And then imagine play. Imagine going back into that moment, responding to your child with that new understanding. So obviously, in those tricky moments, we can't always stop and take 5 or 10 deep breaths. But if we practice this in quiet moments, even one breath can be enough for us to tap into that mindfulness and to be able to respond to that situation with more clarity. There's a great book called Mindful Parenting by Kristen Race, and she similarly suggests stop and notice your own feelings not rejecting those feelings or judging them, but just noticing them like clouds in the sky, as I said before. Then building in a pause and allowing ourselves to really reflect on what everyone needs in that moment. And then finally moving forward with curiosity and empathy, listening to the child and empathizing with them, even if you disagree with what they're saying. So in the example before, oh, sweetheart, it's time to brush your teeth. And they're saying, no, I don't want to brush my teeth. Okay, how come? And they're like, I don't like it when the electric toothbrush buzzes. It makes my mouth feel weird. And you've learned something new. And maybe you can find a way to meet their need there with a different toothbrush. So listening and empathizing can really support us to engage with our kids in ways that work for everyone. So the second practice that I want to introduce you to today is called 10 mindful breaths. And it's a really lovely one. Basically, it's very simple. Whenever you experience something beautiful or you have a meaningful experience, and I actually love the image on the PowerPoint presentation here of a little child looking through the books. I had a lot of moments like that with my children where you're just standing back and watching them, and it's just that real clarity of they're so precious. So in a moment like that, you can just take 10 breaths and reflect on how amazing they are. The reason this is powerful is that science tells us that it takes about 30 seconds for our brains to build new neural pathways. By taking 10 breaths while being present with a positive experience, we're actually rewiring our brains. And so positive ways of thinking can become more familiar. That can be the path where our brain goes down more easily, and it's very nourishing to us as humans. So regularly practicing in this way gives us an opportunity to move from the side of the glass is half empty of scarcity and worry and anxiety to one of appreciation and spaciousness and wonder and curiosity and all of those beautiful ways of thinking. So I want to invite you now to just reflect on a really beautiful moment you've had with your child recently, or maybe just reflect on their face, bring it to mind and think about how precious and perfect they are to you. So let's just take 10 breaths, mindfully reflecting on a moment that you've had with your child. Hey, hopefully you're feeling nice and relaxed and building those new neural pathways. Let's have a look. Sorry, and on the PowerPoint presentation is the handout from the Australian Childhood Foundation. You may even like to print that out and stick it on the fridge. So finally, the third practice we're going to look at is mindful listening. And this definition of mindful listening is taken from Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a famous Vietnamese Buddhist mindfulness teacher. And he says, in mindful listening, we listen with the sole purpose of helping the other person feel heard and accepted. It's quite a different way of listening. Normally in day-to-day life, we listen to respond, we listen to give advice, we listen to fix. This is a very different way of listening. And here you'll see there's a Chinese symbol on the PowerPoint presentation, because that Chinese symbol, interestingly enough, the symbol for listen incorporates all of these other symbols for ear, eye, heart, one, and king, implying that listening is king. And one implying that it's whole body attention, but also I think that it really brings that sense of connection between us. So what I suggest you do with this as a practice after this, listening to this webinar, is the next person that you see, you try just for a minute or two to give your full attention, warm attention to that person without distracting them, trying to fix anything, trying to change anything, trying to give any advice. You just listen with the sole purpose of helping them feel heard and accepted. So this sounds not too difficult, but if you've got a grumbling, whining child who wants to tell you how hard their life is because you cut their toast into triangles instead of squares, it can be a little bit tricky. But you can experiment with this, with just saying, oh, wow, that sounds like it's really hard for you that the toast is in squares instead of triangles. I'm so sorry, love. I didn't know. Yeah, I'm here. So you can just hear and accept their feelings. Another way you might like to practice this is choose a daily interaction that you have with your child. Every time they brush their teeth, every time they have a bath, when you're walking to school, and set your intention that for that 5 minutes or whatever it is, you're going to try to be fully present during that interaction every day for a week or for however long you can do it. I've actually been doing this for a little while now with my teenager in the car, and it is an absolute winner. So if you have a teenager and you're in the car with them, just aiming to make that a time where you don't give any advice, you don't try to fix anything, you just listen, can really have good results. So hopefully this very short webinar has given you a few new ideas. To start with, I hope it's helped you reflect on the fact that you need and deserve support. Every parent does, and that you deserve a lot of gratitude and appreciation for all your hard work. Secondly, hopefully you've got a clear sense of what mindfulness is, that it brings that heightened awareness and those ideas around curiosity and discovery. It allows those to flower in our daily lives. It's backed by science, and it's a really great wellbeing strategy for us to use. And finally, I hope you've got a couple of ideas to try as you go through your day with your children: the stop, pause, play, the 10 breaths for something that you love or that's beautiful, and mindful listening. So thank you so much for being here. There's lots of resources that I will direct you to in the email that I send. For example, our Southwest Metro Parenting Service Facebook site. There are various books that you might like to source about mindfulness and mindful parenting. There's some great podcasts out there, some lovely apps that you might like to use. There's even some great apps to use with your children where they can be practicing mindfulness and meditation. And the websites, the Australian Childhood Foundation and the Raising Children website, are available to you too. And on the PowerPoint presentation, you can see all of these resources for parents and carers. This is a handout that we offer at Miralinga, so you might like to have a look at some of those resources too. So thank you so much. I really appreciate everything it took for you to be here today. And for those of you here in person, I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, everyone listening in at home. Okay, everybody, thank you so much.